Hi guys, welcome back. We are on page 294. I'm going to read the book this way today. Augie is going to the awards ceremony and he just saw Jack there and his parents. So this is where they're at. It says, "Take your seats, everyone." Jack and I walked right behind a couple of sixth graders into the building and then followed them into the auditorium. Mrs. G was at the entrance, handing out the programs and telling kids where to go. "Fifth graders down the aisle to the left," she said. "Sixth graders go to the right. Everyone come in, come in. Good morning. Go to your staging areas. Fifth graders to the left, sixth graders to the right." The auditorium was huge inside, big sparkly chandeliers, red velvet walls, rows and rows of cushioned seats leading up to the giant stage. We walked down the wide aisle and followed the signs to the fifth grade staging area, which was in a big room to the left of the stage. Inside were 4 rows of folding chairs in the front of the room, which is where Mrs. Rubin was standing, waving us as soon as we walked in the room. "Okay, kids, take your seats, she was saying, pointing to the rows of chairs. "Don't forget, you're sitting alphabetically. Come on, everybody, take your seats." Not too many kids had arrived yet, though, and the ones who had weren't listening to her. Me and Jack were sword fighting with our rolled-up programs. "Hey, guys!" It was Summer walking over to us. She was wearing a light pink dress and, I think, a little makeup. "Wow, Summer, you look awesome," I told her, because she really did. "Really? Thanks. You do too, Augie." "Yeah, you look okay, Summer," said Jack, kind of matter-of-factly. And for the first time, I realized that Jack had a crush on her. "This is so exciting, isn't it?" said Summer. "Yeah, kind of," I answered, nodding. "Oh, man, look at the program," said Jack, scratching his forehead. "We are going to be here all freaking day." I looked at my program. Headmaster's opening remarks, Dr. Harold Jansen. Middle school director's address, Mr. Lawrence Tushman. Light and Day, middle school choir. 5th grade student commencement address is Amina Chin. Pachelbel Canon in D, middle school chamber music ensemble. 6th grade student commencement address, Mark Antoniak. Under Pressure, middle school choir. Middle school's dean's address, Mrs. Jennifer Rubin. Awards presentation, see back. Roll call of names. "Why do you think that?" I asked. "Because Mr. Jansen's speeches go on forever," said Jack. "He's even worse than Tushman." "My mom said she actually dozed off when he spoke last year," Summer added. "What's the awards presentation?" I asked. "That's where they give medals to the biggest brainiacs," Jack answered. "Which would mean Charlotte and Zamina will win everything in 5th grade, just like Charlotte won everything in 4th grade and in the 3rd grade. "Not in the 2nd, I laughed. "They didn't give those awards out in 2nd grade, he answered. "Maybe you'll win this year," I joked. "Not unless they give awards for the most C's," he laughed. "Everybody take your seats," Mrs. Rubin started yelling louder. Now, like she was getting annoyed that nobody was listening. "We have a lot to get through, so take your seats. Don't forget, you're sitting in alphabetical order. A through G is in first row, H through N in the second row, O through Q in the third row, R through Z is in the last row. Let's go, people." "We should go sit down," said Summer, walking toward the front section. "You guys are definitely coming over to my house after this, right?" I called out to her. "Definitely," she said, taking her seat next to Zamina Chin. "When did summer get so hot?" Jack muttered in my ear. "Shut up, dude," I said, laughing, as we headed toward the 3rd row. "Seriously, when did that happen?" he whispered, taking the seat next to mine. "Well, Mr. Will," Rubin shouted out. "Last time I checked, W came between R and Z." "Yes?" Jack looked at her blankly. "Dude, you're in the wrong row," I said. "I am?" And the face he made as he got up to leave, which was a mixture of looking completely confused and looking like he just played a joke on somebody, totally cracked me up. A simple thing. About an hour later, we were all seated in the giant auditorium. Remember, they're at the high school, waiting for Mr. Tushman to give his middle school address. The auditorium was even bigger than I imagined it would be, bigger than the one at Via's school. I looked around, and there must have been 1 million people in the audience. Okay, not 1 million, but definitely a lot. "Thank you, Headmaster Jansen, for those very kind words of introduction," said Mr. Tushman, standing behind the podium and the stage as he talked into the microphone. "Welcome, my fellow teachers and members of the faculty. Welcome, parents and grandparents, friends and honored guests, and most especially welcome to my 5th and 6th grade students. Welcome to the Beecher Prep Middle School graduation ceremonies. Everyone applauded. Every year, continued Mr. Tushman, reading from his notes with his reading glasses way down the tip of his nose, I am charged with writing 2 commencement addresses. One for the 5th and 6th grade graduation ceremony and one for the 7th and 8th grade ceremony that will take place tomorrow. And every year I say to myself, let me cut down on my work and write just one address that I can use for both situations. Seems like it shouldn't be such a hard thing to do, right? And yet each year I still end up with 2 different speeches, no matter what my intentions. And I finally figured out why this year. It's not, as you might assume, simply because tomorrow I'll be taking to an older crowd with a middle school experience that is largely behind them, whereas your middle school experience is largely in front of you. No, I think it has to do more with the particular age that you are right now, the particular moment that you live moment in your lives that, even after 20 years of my being around students this age, still moves me. Because you're at the cusp, kids. You're at the edge between childhood and everything that comes after. You're in transition. We are all gathered here together, Mr. Tushman continued, taking off his glasses and using them to point at us in the audience. All of your families, friends, and teachers to celebrate not only your achievements of this past year, Beecher middle schoolers, but your endless possibilities. When you reflect on this past year, I want you all to look where you are now and where you've been. You've all gotten a little taller, a little stronger, a little smarter, I hope. Here, some people in the audience chuckled. But the best way to measure how much you've grown isn't by inches or the number of laps you can now run around the track or even your grade point average, though those things are important to be sure. It is what you've done with your time, how you've chosen to spend your days, and to whom you've touched this year. That, to me, is the greatest measure of success. There's a wonderful line in a book by J.M. Barrie, and no, it's not Peter Pan, and no, I'm not going to ask you to clap if you believe in fairies. Here, everyone laughed again. But in another book by J.M. Barrie called The Little White Bird, he writes, he started flipping through the small book on the podium until he found the page he was looking for, and then he put on his reading glasses. Shall we make a new rule of life? Always to try to be a little kinder than is necessary. Be a little kinder. Here, Mr. Tushman looked at the audience. Kinder than is necessary, he repeated. What a marvelous line, isn't it? Kinder than is necessary. Because it's not enough to be kind. One should be kinder than needed. Why, I love that line, the concept that it reminds me that we carry us as human beings, not just the capacity to be kind, but the very choice of kindness. And what does that mean? How is that measured? You can't use a yardstick. It's like I was saying before. It's not like measuring how much you've grown in a year. It's not exactly quantifiable, is it? How do we know we've been kind? What is being kind anyways? He put on his reading glasses again and started flipping through another small book. There's another passage in a different book I'd like to share with you, he said, if you'll bear with me while I find it. Here we go. In Under the Eye of the Clock by Christopher Nolan, the main character is a young man who is facing some extraordinary challenges. There's one part where someone helps him, a kid in his class. On the surface, it's a small gesture, but to this young man, whose name is Joseph, it's, well, if you permit me, he cleared his throat and read from the book. It was at moments such as these that Joseph recognized the face of God in human form. It glimmered in their kindness to him. It glowed in their keenness. It hinted in their caring. Indeed, it caresses them in their gaze. He paused and took off his reading glasses again. It glimmered in their kindness to him, he repeated, smiling. Such a simple thing, kindness, such a simple thing. A nice word of encouragement given when needed. Act of friendship. A passing smile. He closed the book, put it down, and leaned forward on the podium. Children, what I want to impart to you today is an understanding of the value of the simple thing called kindness. And that's all I want to leave with you today. I know I'm kind of infamous for my verborosity. That means talking a lot. Here, everybody laughed again. I guess he knew he was known for his long speeches. But I want you, my students, to take away from your middle school experience, he continued, is that sure knowledge that in the future you make for yourselves anything as possible. If every single person in the room made it a rule that wherever you are, whenever you can, you will try to act a little kinder than is necessary, the world really would be a better place. And if you do this, if you act just a little kinder than is necessary, someone else, somewhere, someday may recognize in you, in every single one of you, the face of God. He paused and shrugged. Or whatever politically correct spiritual representation of the universal goodness you happen to believe in, he added quickly, smiling, which got a lot of laughs and loads of applause, especially from the back of the auditorium where the parents were sitting. All right, we're going to stop there. Question number 1. Where was Augie at for the graduation? Number 2. What grades were in the graduation ceremony? There was 2 grades. What grades were there? Number 3, Augie found out Jack likes who? Number 4, who is talking? Who is making the speech? And number 5, what was his main message? Like, what was he trying to tell all the kids? All right, I will see you guys tomorrow.